There's something special about a youth pastor drinking with grandma. There's just something
Right.
wholesome about that.
And so I'm going to this bar and I'm super stoked. And I get there after my mom and my grandma get there, and my mom's got 9 shots laid out. And this is my first shot ever.
Again, I want to do the whole gamut from youth pastor to comedian to scam buster, anything in between.
I am stoked. It's you know what? I'm glad you're willing to go all those places because yeah, unfortunately, my life has just been a series of confusing roller coasters. So I am happy to go all those places.
Great. All right. This is going to be a fun show. You guys are going to enjoy this so much. I have Ryan Kelly on the show. Ryan Kelly has been described as a modern day Sherlock Holmes. He's a comedian, and on his spare time, he likes to bust scammers. Check him out. He's pretty big on social media there, TikTok, Instagram, millions of views. And what makes him unique is Ryan started off as a youth pastor, got into comedy, and then got into busting scammers. I'm excited to have him here. Ryan Kelly, welcome.
Well, happy to be here. First off, thank you so much. Second off, I don't know who's described me as a modern day Sherlock Holmes. I definitely describe myself more as like Maxwell Smart. Like, oh, he's trying his best and we'll see how it goes. Like,
Would
but
you
it's
believe?
yeah, exactly. It's like, may I have the cone of silence? Like that's my exact thing. But I will say it's been fun. So the youth pastor thing started out like I did go to Christian school for like 18 years. I taught Sunday school a little bit, and I went by the name Youth Pastor Ryan on social media because of how much I just look like a stereotypical youth pastor. I was just like, I'm the most generic white guy you've ever seen. I look like if Costco sold people, and that's why I go by Youth Pastor Ryan. But yeah, since then it's bounced all over the place, man. We've been, especially with social media, it's been a ton of fun, but there have been some weird shifts. You know, everybody always says, you know, you got to find your niche. And I apparently am terrible at reading instructions because we've done everything from scam hunting. I worked at Disney. I told those stories. Somewhere in between, I ended up hanging out with a lot of like huge bearded dudes that were awesome. And it's just been a lot of fun. It's been a really fun ride.
All right. So obviously you come from a religious family. 18 years of religious training or Christian school, I think is great. And then, so you were a youth pastor during this time only, or did you take it for a couple of years after you graduated?
No, not really. Honestly, I just kind of like I helped with like kids and like Sunday school and things like that. Like that was honestly just kind of my easier way to like I was just like kind of like a younger teenager. And so it was like, hey, this is a way that you can like talk and play with kids and like have a great time while also not having to just sit and be quiet for an hour and a half. And I am not great at that. So yeah, that's pretty much just where I did my thing. But after that, I mean, I've done quite a few different types of like I guess what you consider like either mentorships or like youth pastor type things. Like when I was in college, I did a ton of improv comedy, and that's actually how I got into stand up was through improv, and I loved it. And at one point, there was actually an LGBTQ youth group that wanted like people to come in and do it. It's funny, I went to the Christian college down there. They were very confused why I was there because they were like, I remember groups of kids would come up and be like, "You're straight?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "I don't know. I love improv, and I think everybody deserves to love improv." And they're like, "Cool." So yeah, I guess that was probably the last time that I did what would be considered like youth pastory, but it had nothing. It was for the Church of Improv, which is just a lot of yes and. So
Yeah.
it was fun. It was really
Yeah.
fun.
Well, and I think everybody should do at least a month or three of improv because it really helps you in so many different ways. It is, people think it's just for comedians. I think it's a great people skill.
I could not agree more. I think it is, I was very fortunate that in high school I had a teacher that was taught by Del Close. And so we got all of that like information like really firsthand. And she was actually really tough on us as like a improv teacher, which you wouldn't expect, but it was great and we got really good. And honestly, I just think that it's such a valuable skill for anybody, whether you want to do public speaking or just converse better with people. I also think the whole yes and premise makes you like more amicable just in society, and that's kind of nice. So yeah, I love all of that stuff across the board. God, I could go on about how improv should be taught in schools like for hours.
Absolutely. And it would probably have a fairly good attendance. There's going to be those people who want to participate and those people who want to just what do you got, partake of the comedy. So it would be a
Yeah.
great class. And you're right. I think if you're interested in public speaking, if you want to be a trainer, a manager, there's so many things that you learn, so much confidence that you get out of
Mhm.
that environment. It's very valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, every conversation that's improv, whether you like
Yeah.
to admit it, it's just the way that it goes.
It
Yeah.
really is. And there's nothing worse, especially with today. I think that you have younger and younger kids being glued to that device and less social skills are being developed.
I think that like it's both a device thing, but I also think that going through COVID was a huge thing. Like we're still seeing the effects of that, and especially socially on younger kids, and being able to kind of head it off of the past with something like improv training or just even group, you know, kind of sessions that you wouldn't necessarily have to phrase as improv, but really are. I mean, I think there's a lot of benefit there.
Absolutely. All right. So you go from high school to college and you're studying what in college?
I studied both international relations with a concentration on Civil War, ethnic conflict, and what is it? Civil War, ethnic conflict, and terrorism.
Wow.
And then
Heavy. That's
yeah, well, and also at the same time, I was doing the other side of it, where I was also studying marketing. And weird, it was at the time when like ISIS was getting really big, and weirdly enough, the marketing that they would use is the exact same as the marketing strategies that like Coca-Cola would use. And so it's just because it's just effective. And
right.
so it was really funny to be like, there shouldn't be crossover. There's a lot of crossover. Yeah, went to college, did improv up there, but that's actually where I started doing stand up because it was just something that I could fully do. And the problem with improv sometimes is you can't get a team together. You can't have other people to play with. And so for me, I was just stoked to get to do stand up, and it was so much fun. It was a great place to start.
So when somebody says, "Hey, Ryan, what do you do for a living?" You say, "I'm a comedian." I'm how are you a
Yeah,
full-time comedian at this point?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I am a full-time comedian. That is the thing that actually that is the thing that pays the bills, which I think is very
Okay.
funny. Because I'm a full-time comedian that does cybersecurity on the side, which is not how that's supposed to go at all. My parents are very confused, if I'm very honest, like that. But no, yeah, full-time stand-up comedian. That's normally how I answer it. I
Okay.
also do like content creation, things like that, obviously, but it all stemmed from the reason why I did content creation was because I wanted to test material without having to like get I was working too much at Disneyland, so I didn't have time to get up and do stand up. So I was like, I'll just test it online, and then that did a lot better than I ever expected. And so I was like, okay, noted. That is but
Yeah.
yeah, really you can say whatever I do. I'm just happy to be doing it. I'm glad it pays my bills, and I think that's kind of where I'm at, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and backing up a little bit, I think you mentioned something about, different niches or whatever. I think that's great. I think that to me, and just to be transparent, just because I struggled with it, I was very jealous of these kids who they already had everything planned out. Oh yeah, I'm going to go to college for this reason. I'm going to do this career track, and I'm going, wow. I was nowhere near that. I was like, I was just grateful to get out of high school and I tell my kids it's good to try different things. I mean, look, if you know what you want to do and you love doing X and you see yourself doing X for a while, do that. But
Mhm.
if you're not sure what you want to do and you like comedy or you like this or you like whatever, try it all, see what sticks. What's your
Yeah.
thought?
I would totally agree. And I think that it's far more uncommon, especially now, to have that single, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And that's, I want to say, gosh, is it like 7 career changes are expected per person
Yes.
throughout life? Yeah, it's something like that. And I think very nicely, like my parents were always very supportive. I always make the joke that I'd be a way funnier stand-up comedian if they hadn't been. But just got to find a way to blame them somehow. But no, my mom ended up she studied I want to say she did marketing, then she didn't like it, so she graduated with it though because it was her senior year. She studied like she read 9 books in 11 days and took the systems engineers test. to be like a systems engineer for like computer science. And then she just started working that job. She just started doing that. She started doing coding, programming, all this stuff. She's crazy intelligent. And now she's essentially like a contractor. She can fully build houses. Like we're talking wiring,
Wow.
tile, it's crazy. And my dad, for his part, he was always definitely a guy that was very charismatic and good with sales. I would say him and my little brother have that, where they're those people that have that natural charisma that you're just like, wow, don't know how you do it. But he did everything from started his own like oil and lube on wheels was the name of it. And it was essentially like they would go and they would change your oil and like fix it and do it for a lot of like companies. And some of it went well, some of it didn't. But then he started selling different things and ended up being very successful with it. And so, yeah, I think it's cool that I saw them all bounce around from different things in a positive way. I've also seen
Yeah.
some family members that have bounced around and it's not gone great. But I think that there's a difference between bouncing around to the things you like and always chasing like success and always following what is being successful than necessarily just going, I just don't want to do this anymore. I think following the fear is way less effective than following the fun, I think would be the way to say it.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that a lot of people have said over the years, some variation, follow your bliss. If it feels right, do it. And
Yeah.
I think for the most part, that's true. I think that there's such a big emphasis on you get the big degree, you get the big career, you get the big house, you go for the big stuff like that, which is fine if
Yeah.
you find some way of doing it on your terms. And I
Yeah.
think that the reason we're going to have 6, 7, 8, 10 different career changes is because uh, people, I think they're just not developing their interests enough. I don't know if it's just that, or I'm trying to think what other reason other than they're experimenting and like a lot of us trying to figure things out. I don't
Yeah. You know
know.
what? I think that's actually a very interesting thing. And I think our school system does a good job of helping people explore interests. You know what I mean? I just feel like, most of the time you get the basics. And don't get me wrong, we definitely need the basics. But there is something about like the specificity of it all you don't get to explore. So for instance, like when you're in school, there's theater. And that's just all of it. That's all performance. And there's so many different levels to that and so many different places you can go with that. And I think finding the niche that makes you happy. I mean, there are people that are that have jobs like lore consultant for Sonic the Hedgehog. There's people that do a whole bunch of different things that are paleontologists, but specifically with like trilobites, those little like shell creatures from way back. So it's like, I think it's just find your specific thing. And it's yeah, I feel like we're all thrown towards too much vagueness. And that
Yes.
could be where I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I was while you were talking about becoming, brilliant at the basics or having the basics. I think
Mm.
there's I think it's Minnesota, and forgive me if it's not Minnesota. I don't want to offend our great people there in Minnesota,
Minnesotans.
but yeah, but I think there's a couple of states that are moving away from that, where you no longer have to pass the basics. Where, instead of asking us to get smarter, be stronger, let's go weaker. Let's just dumb it down a little bit to I just don't know where we're going to go with that kind of thinking. I think that we should be, in my opinion, trying to get a little bit smarter, a little bit stronger, and but anyway, apparently some of these schools think the basics are too tough.
Yeah, and you know what? It's always been hard. I think I'm very fortunate that like I've been surrounded by some pretty intelligent people. I've also been surrounded by people that struggle on the other end of that spectrum. But I think, yeah, it's weird to lower it for everybody when it's like, well, how do we? I don't know. I just feel like it almost needs to be more specialized. Like, for instance, like even though people might not be able to, be as strengthened at the basics, well, there are going to be things that they figure out. I have an uncle that God, he is so talented and can not only fix, but also jury rig anything you need. Like it is just wild to watch. And he wasn't good at school at all. And I think that sometimes find like taking those kids and like putting them on tracks that are like, hey, are you having fun with this? And they're like, yes. Well, then let's build that more. And you're gonna find math. And to be honest, I feel similarly about the way that I learned cyber is
Mm.
I was terrible with computers. It was the joke in my family that like if something was broken, like tech wise, like it's just dead. It's like Ryan touched it and now it has decided it will never work again. But For me, it was when I got scammed and I had all this background. I actually have my master's degree in Homeland Security now. And I understood the basics of kind of how money works, how it goes, and the basics of cyber. But I really just threw myself into it because I had an interest then. And I knew none of the basics. I guess this is what I'd probably like to say most. We are taught the theoretical of so many things versus the practicality of so many things. And I found that the practicality makes it so much easier to learn. Because then I figured out, oh, this is how this works. This is how this works. This is how it goes. And now, because I'm working at such a base level of how computers operate, I can be so much more successful than say, hey, what's the theory behind this? I don't
Right.
know. I
Right.
don't care. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think that it's a good point. I think that that's the approach that is missing in public schools, meaning they want to put you in a box, regardless of what your aptitude is. Oh, you don't like math? Well, you still have to have math, and you have to have a certain level, a certain amount of math. One of the things, I have a friend of mine who is into they homeschool all the kids.
Mhm.
And what I love about this is that if your child does like math, then you can give them more mathematics as much as they want to take. If your child likes writing, then they can take more classes that's going to emphasize that. And I think that's what's missing in school is that there's no creativity, there's no follow your passion. It's all you got to stay within this box. And
Yeah.
the teachers, I think most of the teachers,
They seem so frustrated. I've had a
yeah,
couple friends that now do social media that used to be teachers, and they're just like, it's just so tough. And honestly, like I give a hand all those teachers that are
yes,
able to do all that work, and especially like, at the rate that they're being paid, it's just like, man, you guys, you're godsends for that. And it's just got to be really frustrating. I think it's tough to try to change a whole system for this type of things. And obviously, America is a huge country, but it will be interesting to see where we go and as we see different states trying different things. And really, I will say the benefit to us being such a large country with 50 states is you can take 50 different options and figure out which one's working. Like
yes.
it's a pretty effective way to do it. So you can really get it all mixed up. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that one of the blessings, for lack of a better term, one of the benefits of COVID is that we were able to test the capacity of the internet, the capacity of online learning. Some people loved it, some people hated it. Same thing with workers. There are certain people that are going to be okay with online work or online learning, and there's some people who prefer the in-class or the in-office work, and that's fine. There's no wrong or right, but I thought that was a great experiment.
I think it was really like just fascinating. Obviously, we all wish COVID hadn't happened, but man, it was interesting and probably something that we all maybe needed to see to an aspect of like what is capable for workers to do. How do we keep efficiency up while also, if, for instance, for parents, hey, you need to be able to like have time at home with the kids. You can work from home, and then that ended up being effective for people. Now they can maintain at home even past COVID. I think that's really cool. I think that it might hopefully help workers of the future and kids as well.
All right, let's talk about this because you said you have a master's degree in Homeland Security. What does that mean?
Man, that's an excellent question. I ask myself that every day. I actually have it with me. It's funny. I put eyebrows and a mustache on it because I just thought it was cute and I didn't want people to like think I was taking myself too seriously, so that's why I went with that. He's got a he's got a little hat too. It's very fun. Funny enough, it was actually I was working at Disneyland and they have something called the Disney Aspire program, which I'm shocked that I actually was talking to somebody recently. They still have it. It's fantastic because you can get like they will pay for your entire schooling, even if you're just working part-time. I always
Wow.
joke that it's like the military, but you get yelled at more.
Working at Disney or going to Homeland Security college? I
Oh,
mean, degree.
working at Disney for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're yeah, it's weird. You got the on the ground level too, where you're like, am I gonna get punched? No, but it's a really cool program for those that like are thinking I can't afford college or things like that. I honestly like I was very stoked to hear about that program. They just introduced it when I was there. I was like, yeah, I absolutely want to do this because you're not, you're you're paid a certain amount, but that is a good way. Really, just look for your employee benefits that can make that worth it more for you. And that was how it was for me. So yeah, I got my master's in Homeland Security. And what it essentially means is like I was targeting like critical infrastructure, better understanding like emergency response. I also looked at Colts, lone wolves, and bombers to better understand kind of like how they operate. Obviously, they're very difficult to catch. What tactics and data we have available to us now to be able to help figure that out, and how you can prevent things in the future, whether that be like Timothy McVeigh or the Millennium Park bombing, or if, even if you're looking like serial killers or like human trafficking. And it was sorry to take this on such a dark note, but that is what I studied. And from that, I learned a lot about how money moves and how like money mules, everything that goes along with who's really benefiting in the end of this. And if you can put a plug on that, I mean, once the money's out of it, unless they're like a fanatic, that's going to put a stop to a lot of crime. But when you've got fanaticism and kind of, and an exalted level of self-identification, then you're like, well, I don't know how to stop that.
Right. No, you can't stop that. I mean, fanaticism, you're not doing it for any other reason than this religious belief or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, religious, social, political, like it's just
Yeah.
it's all this really it's baseline extremism. And
Yes.
it's so fascinating to better understand like how that was. And so I started looking into a lot of that stuff. And but at the time I was actually, my social media was taken off, so it was funny because I was like, well, now I have all these degrees and I do jokes for a living, and so it's also weird to go from like bombers to jokes. Like, granted, I still try to avoid bombing now, so I mean that's the good thing about being a stand-up comedian. But no, and then
Yeah.
took all that basic information that was kind of around those other things and was able to put it more towards cyber, which has been a really fun transition, and especially for my content, what I get to do.
Absolutely. All right. So tell me a little bit about your hacking. Obviously, you just mentioned that you got hacked, so that kind of made you become very interested in cyber, and
Mhm.
and now you help people with scams, or you no, you help get even with scammers. That's better put.
I think that's a better way to say it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wouldn't describe myself as a hacker by any means. I'm pretty simplistic with my methods. I would describe myself more as like a social engineer. And I think that in everything that I've actually done up into my life into this point, whether it be improv, stand up, reading a room, learning like Homeland Security, it's really all about, at the end of the day, everything's always about the people. And at that point, I realized, oh, these scammers are not prepared because they do not think that they're ever going to get scammed because they're on that side of it. And so if you just turn the tables on them, they're not prepared for that. And so that makes it really easy to set up things like credential harvesters, or like location finders. If you can turn the phone's GPS towards you so that you can see where they're at. I mean, there are a lot of fun things that I've gotten to be able to do thanks to thanks to a couple quick little apps and platforms. It's been fun.
Okay. Let's see a couple things that you said. Credential what?
A credential harvester. So
What the heck is a credential harvester? This is a term I've not ever heard.
okay, so think about it like those USPS texts you get, and how it
Okay.
takes you to like a weird website, but it
Oh,
looks pretty
gotcha.
normal. And then you type in your information. So that information doesn't go towards where you think it's going. It goes towards the people that are stealing it. And those are your credentials, and they have now been stolen. So a credential harvester can look like pretty much anything depending on what you're trying to get a hold of. Most of the time, I'm trying to get a hold of login information, because I would like to be able to take over an account, then send out emails to the people that they're also trying to scam and be like, hey, this is a scam. Do not fall for this. And then I'll delete the account. Other times it's gone in much funnier ways. Um, I personally I love the celebrity scams. I think those are hilarious to me, especially because I just love the image that Toby Keith really wants you to get into crypto. You know what I mean? Like that just makes no sense. But one of my favorites had to be, I had Niall Horan, someone pretending to be the former One Direction boy band member. I think he's now the host of The Voice. And I had this guy messaging me. And so what I'll do is I'll set up a honeypot for them where I become their perfect victim. I become the person they're most looking for. So I was Sophie. I was 19 years old. I was in college, but I had access to money because like my parents.
Sure.
I was shocked at how well I could play a 19-year-old girl. But I use AI to generate images so that I can, for instance, set up fake accounts so it looks very real, which has actually been really helpful to be able to, because I have no artistic ability and I also don't want to use real people's images because those can be reverse image search. So it was just really easy to do that. And I'm start going back and forth with him. I sent him a credential harvester, and I pinged his location. I know where he is, and then with the credential harvester, he sends me his login and password. And I was like, well, we have to see if it's available. And so I open up. He had not set up his two-factor authentication. He had not set up any sort of defensive measures. So it just logs me in. And I was like, oh, buddy. So I went through because it was Google, you can see his search history. And my man has not heard of incognito mode. Okay. Like it was, it's so I take a screenshot of his search history. Some of my favorite things, he is learning about Niall Horan as I'm asking him questions about Niall Horan. Like, how old is he? How tall is he? What are his parents like? And then my favorite was just Montana time zone. What is Mormon? Like, I was just like, what are you doing? So it was a lot of fun. I sent him his search history in a screen grab. He blocked me, but I was still in the account, so I just unblocked myself, and that's how you get a scammer to need to change his pants. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Everybody who's been scammed or who's been, what do you call it? Who's been locked out of their account, whatever, they're
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're gonna love this. All right, so when you do this, do you turn over this information to Homeland, the FBI, local authorities? It all depends. What's your system or your process here?
It all depends. There's definitely different places, kind of different strokes for different folks. I've definitely turned over a lot of stuff to the FBI, mostly because you can use their IC3 form. So if you ever get scammed, use the IC3 form. It's their internet crimes form. And that's just a great way to kind of get that stuff to them. Because essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to build like bigger cases. So they want to see people that scam repeatedly, multiple things. So if you don't hear back from them, it's not that they're not working on it, it's that they're building up bigger stuff, especially because a lot of it happens out of country. So that requires extradition. But I've also worked with a lot of local law enforcement, especially if I can find things that are like, happening just down the street or in the US. That's been a ton of fun. Uh, some of it is weirdly enough, I ended up finding an entirely fake shipping company, which is actually how I originally got scammed, was a fake shipping company. And so this guy who was just leaving the military just wanted to ship his car back so he could get back to civilian life and start doing his thing. And he got scammed. And I was like, send it to me, man. Let's figure this guy out. And yeah, found out the house they were using to as like a fake base of operations, like everything along. None of it made sense because you can just check company registries, and it just didn't make any sense. And that's when the investigative wing of the Department of Transportation reached out to me, and I did not know that existed at all.
Wow.
And so, yeah, they reached out and ended up giving them the information, and that was a lot of fun. But it really varies, and I've caught everything from car scams, huge money romance scams, to like little things like somebody got scammed out of money because they wanted to buy snails, and even all the way up to like child predators and things like that. Like we've been able to kind of swat them all, so it's been fun.
Wow. Wow. All right. So did the guy get his money back? The army guy or the military guy? Do you know
You know
what
what? I'm not
happened?
sure. I'm not sure if he ended up getting his money back. I actually emailed that guy not too long, the DOT guy, not too long ago, and I think the investigation is still ongoing. But I think they're closing in on him, which is very cool. It's really going to be a lot of like seizure of assets and things like that. And I'm
Right.
hoping that when that happens, all the money goes back to the guy because it's just tough. Unfortunately, we have so many like laws for classic crimes, but digital crimes, it's still the Wild West, you know?
Sure. Well, and you mentioned that if you don't hear back from the FBI, don't get discouraged. Absolutely don't get discouraged because I believe just on the predator side of things, somebody told me that we have something like 500,000 daily predators out there, just globally looking for people. And that's just one side of the internet crimes. There's the financial side, there's
Mhm.
the identity theft side. So the FBI and all these people are being hit with hundreds of thousands of crimes probably every day. There's just not enough manpower.
Oh, it's not even close. I mean, it's it is so tough. And, obviously we have a lot of laws that like restrict the FBI from accessing like certain data and things like that, as well as like local law enforcement and the DOT and like pretty much everybody, which is really tough. So what's kind of wild to think about is I have better access to some of this data than they do. And some of it they're not even allowed to see. And a lot of that's just ad data. I've thankfully been able to partner occasionally with companies that do like essentially ad data buying. And then you get 3 trillion data points that you can see where people live, where they go to get their coffee, where they go to the gym, and then it all pops back. And it's crazy to see, but the FBI, local law enforcement, the level it would take to get them to get a subpoena for that or to get them that information, it's just a lot. And so it's sometimes it's just late, which I think is it's fascinating. It's such a weird. Again, we're just not caught up to the cyber age.
Right, right. Well, and then I think also what's interesting to me, I've seen this over and over again. People can Google it. Both Google and Facebook and their subsidiaries are less than forthcoming when it comes to helping law enforcement.
Yep.
Google has put up roadblock after roadblock. I'm like, why would you do that? I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. First of all, you're an American company. You get all these American benefits. Same thing to Mark Zuckerberg and the people there at Meta or Facebook or whatever. But when law enforcement needs help because they're trying to catch a bad guy,
Yeah.
they hit a wall, and they hit multiple walls. I mean, it just blows me away that these guys are such jerks about it.
It's I get that. I think it's really frustrating, especially when like you see it's that tough thing. It's like everybody's innocent until, proven guilty. It's hard when you're on the other side and you see the data where you're like, I'd be shocked if he was innocent. I think that it's tough because, at the end of the day, I think that Americans definitely value like that freedom aspect and that idea of like being able to be anonymous. Unfortunately, it's just like if you have a cell phone, any app you use for free is selling your data. That's how they're making money. And they're making a lot of it. So it is just tough where what's the good balance of that. And I think that I want to say it's Facebook actually that has like a automated system, like that's like a law enforcement portal that they can go into and submit, but they have to get like all this stuff that goes into it first. And honestly, like if you've ever tried to work with Meta, I don't know if any human being works at Meta. And after hearing that like law enforcement has a portal, I'm like, I don't think that people work there. And that's just really tough when they're trying to get specific data and, they'll give them a PDF, but that's not helpful. It's just, yeah, I totally get that. I just wish there was somehow more cooperation that also let people feel safe overall. You know what I mean? Like just something that's yeah.
And I think that look, it's completely different. I think, let's say, a civil suit versus a criminal investigation. During the Trump administration, the Trump administration was trying to get access. When I say his administration, I think the DOJ at that time, there was a terrorist attack on one of the military bases. I think it was an Air Force base, and it was by a gentleman who was, if I'm not mistaken, from Saudi Arabia. He was supposed to be there. He was being trained. Trained. Remember this?
Yeah,
and so
yeah, I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so he, whatever, he came in and started shooting and killing people. And he had, I think, at least one phone where he shot it, so it couldn't be used. And they finally took him down. But 4 or 5 years, maybe wasn't that long, at least a couple of years, up to 4 years, Apple wouldn't cooperate.
The Apple things bother me a significant amount. You know what? I will say, I will give Apple weird credit here. I think that we're all pretty aware that it feels like they slow our phones down and they make us buy new phones. And that's just from a commercial standpoint, it's like, oh, come on. But they actually, for iCloud accounts, they take them down really quick if they think that they've got like bad data on it. And you can just submit that, which I think is actually really cool. It abuse at iCloud. However, when it comes to stuff like that, especially if the perpetrator is deceased and there's no one trying to like there's no family that's trying to defend this, like, why aren't you helping? Just grant them access. Now I understand if, say, you don't want to give them proprietary tech that like allows them to break into every phone, but man, if the perp is dead, we would need to figure out if this was part of a larger cell, and that is very time sensitive. Help them out. That's kind of how I feel about that, especially in situations like exactly what you just described.
Yeah, there is no reason, especially in the scenario you give, hey, if the perpetrator is dead,
Mhm.
and we're not talking about some, I don't know, low left crime where he was pretending to be somebody else and getting money for romantic reasons, some low level crime. We're talking about a terrorist attack on military base. Come on, Apple. Again, you're an American company. I think they need to. I think they need to step up and help out, make it
Well,
easier. I'm not saying, hey, here's, if you want people to get a subpoena, great, do that, but
yep.
don't make it harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, I think that especially when I'm able to sit here and get sometimes better data than like parts of the government are, like that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like I'm just an idiot civilian, and if I am able to pay more money and then like, or thankfully I don't have to because companies will volunteer it to me, which is very cool. That's great. I sometimes it's just really frustrating at that point where you're like, okay, what are we doing? Who is this helping? I guess is the main question. It's
Right.
like, what is, because don't get me wrong, like I'm happy to hear the other side of it, but I'm not seeing that overweighing what we seem to be bringing to the table with this. So yeah, yeah, it's a frustrating lot
Yeah,
to
I yeah, it is frustrating, especially especially like some people. Like, first of all, you mentioned we're already being tracked by our phones.
yes.
And then you have all these companies out there that want you to check in. Hey, I just bought a pickle at the pickle shop. Look at me, I'm
Yeah.
cool, I'm checking in. I would say at least 80% of our privacy is probably non-existent. It's all make believe.
100%. It is. I cannot agree with that more. I think it was McAfee before he died that said, the only way that you can either be private is to be completely off the radar and never talk to anybody and never use any technology, or weirdly enough, the other way, lie about everything. You got to lie about where you are, all these things, because you can overload it in the opposite direction, and that is an effective way to do it. But at the same time, I feel like we all just want to kind of live normal lives. And unfortunately, with big data getting the way that it is, it, your privacy is an illusion. And that's unfortunate, it makes us all uncomfortable, but yeah, that's it.
It is because we're so glad to give it up.
Yeah.
We're just so like, here you go. Let me tell you more. Let me tell you more. I've had several friends of mine who put like not only their address on their social media, but their birth date. I said,
I
dude, at this point, why don't you just upload your credit card and your driver's license? They probably already have it at this point.
I want to say it was back in like 2010 or 2011. There were probably a couple hundred Facebook accounts that people were honest and said they worked at the NSA. And it's like, are you out of your mind? You know what people are capable of doing with this information. And it's just like, you just put a huge target on your back to like try to get scammed or try to get broken into. And it's like, oh my God. Yeah, it's funny. There's really no end to the amount that people are willing to like kind of give up for convenience. And I mean, think about how many times you go to any website and you hit, oh, I accept these cookies. I accept these cookies. I accept these cookies. I mean, I'm in the habit now of being like, I reject all cookies. I retract all this, or I like only keep the things that are necessary, and keeping a VPN on so that I'm in multiple different places. You try as much as you can, but at the end of the day, my phone is going to say you checked in at your home. Hi, Ryan. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you also mentioned something called a location finder. Is this kind of like a little snippet of code that somebody puts on your phone, or what is a location finder?
Yeah, I don't think that's like probably the technical term for it. That's just what I would certainly call it. But just essentially, there's a couple different programs out there that are able to essentially take a phone's GPS and flip it so that you're able to see it. So it's
Mhm.
essentially sending you where it is. There's a lot of fascinating ways to go about it. There's so many that it's tough to know exactly where to start with it. I mean, if you ever use any of those DocuSign type websites that'll let you sign documents, oh, you can embed crazy things in there so that it'll ping back to you. Um, it's there's also a lot of programs. So if you're trying to get somebody to open up a link, and then it asks you, you know how your phone will always ask you, hey, do you want to share your location with this? And people normally just hit allow, just like out of habit. Well, sometimes that's me. So that's and when you allow that location, hi, like I mean, I can see very close. But what's really amazing is really using this ad data that is available. I mean, I can see which side of the room your computer is on. I can see where
Wow.
you lay down and put your phone at night. And that makes it really
Wow.
fun. I mean, it's wild because then I can send like screenshots to scammers and be like, "Hey, you sleep here, your computer's here." And at the end of the day, a lot of these guys aren't going to get prosecuted, but if you can freak them out enough to get them to stop, that's a win. That is a
Yeah.
huge win. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I do want to talk about this because I think this is too important not to talk about. Um, and that is doing shots with grandma for your 21st birthday. Come
Yes.
on, that's if that isn't homespun America, I don't know what is. I mean,
It's about as
that
happy and wholesome as you can get, you know?
that's that is the the what is that guy's name? Oh, who used to paint all those great pictures? I think it starts with an R. Is it Reming? No.
Wait, Bob Ross?
No,
That's who I
no.
think of.
Yeah, and probably now I'm thinking maybe this. He's a famous artist, had all these great pictures of America. And anyway,
Oh, I know what you're talking
like
about.
like
Yeah.
the famous Thanksgiving turkey thing with America, with the family around the turkey. I want to show this. Hold on a second. We gotta show this because
Yeah,
it's
let's do
just
it.
all right. Let's see if I can operate the technology for it. My
I also didn't drink until I was 21. That's how much of a rule follower I am. That's a real story. Let's step out of this one real quick and step over here. I really didn't drink until I was 21 because I knew that you'd have to get a fake ID, and it felt so illegal to me. I was like, I can't do it. And so I was just waiting, but I was gonna turn 21 on a Monday. And that sucks. So I did what I do all the time when I'm having these types of situations. I call my mom. And I go, yeah, I think I'm just gonna go out by myself on the Monday. And she just goes, no, you're not. And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, because I'm getting your grandma and we're coming. So she picks up my 81-year-old grandma. They drive from Missouri to Michigan to go to this biker dive bar that I love. Now, this dive bar was so sketchy that in 1 week, 2 different dudes OD'd on heroin. They both survived, but it's very intense. Bikers would regularly walk in with like armor on. It was crazy, and I used to do clean improv comedy out of that bar. To put in perspective what that means, I used to play make pretend in front of felons. And so I'm going to this bar and I'm super stoked, and I get there after my mom and my grandma get there, and my mom's got 9 shots laid out. And this is my first shot ever. Here's the thing, I start drinking and I'm going shot for shot with my grandma. Who is drinking me under the table. Okay, now, she's cheating. She used to be an alcoholic, okay? So like, she was really bringing it back for this one. I could feel it. And at one point, we're 8 or 9 shots deep, and that's when my grandma goes, man, you know what I miss? Jaeger. Oh, so you've had it. I had not. If you've never had Jaeger, it's like rebranded thick paint thinner. She gets me a double shot of that to take with her. And so I take my double shot, she takes hers, she downs it easy. And then I'm like, I can do this. And I pound it, and I am KO'd. I am down for the count. I don't feel good at all. And to this day, I've still never drank Jaeger again. So now every time I look at a bottle of Jaeger, I think, oh, Grandma. So I go to stand up, and if you've ever been drinking while you're sitting down, when you stand up, your body doesn't work the same as it used to. So I stand up, and my legs go, we don't work here no more. And I unstand up. I sit back down, and my mom then proceeds to help me up and walk me to the bathroom. Very sweet of her. Now, my grandma is still at the bar. And a buddy of mine, whose nickname was Biz, to this day, I do not know his real name. The reason why his nickname was Biz is because he was in the business of selling drugs. He was our local drug dealer, and everybody loved Biz, and Biz loved me. And I don't know why drug dealers love me. I think it's because they see me as like a pet. They're just like, look at him. He doesn't get it. And so Biz sits down, and he starts taking shot for shot with my grandma. And at one point, he looks over at my grandma and goes, dang, you pretty cool, old lady. She downs the shot and goes, thanks, been here a minute.
So how old is your grandma at this point?
She actually passed away in 2020.
Oh my goodness.
So she's yeah, so I guess she's post age at this point. No, she was really cool. She was awesome, and her and my grandpa, especially for like the first 5 years of my life, we all lived out on a farm together because both my parents worked, and so I spent a lot of time with them, and it was always super close to them. And it was at the time my mom's a little, and then I'm not gonna say her age because she's still alive and she might have some opinions on that. But my grandma was, I want to say, 81 at the time she was doing shots with me at 21.
So you and your 81-year-old grandma, 80 plus.
Yep.
And you're doing a double Jaeger after already doing 7 or 8 or 9 shots.
So many. I went across the street. So we get to this bar, which is it's such an interesting place. And I go across the street because it was a friend of mine's girlfriend's birthday too. And they were hanging out back at our house. So I was like, oh, I'm going to bring them a drink because it's cool and that's nice. And like, they were always really good friends of ours. And then I get to the other side of this bar, and it's my mom, and she's got 6 of these, so 2 for each of these. They were like chocolate, like there was some weird, and I'm not like a big chocolate with liquor guy. That is not my thing, but we took them. And then we kept hitting more and more. And it was by the time we got to Jaeger that I was like, this is an issue. This is like, we are hitting a problem. Plus, very truthfully, I am just such a rule follower. I can't seem to help myself. That was actually the first time I ever drank, was with my mom and grandma, and just having my grandma just drink me under the table. Just bam. It was great. It was a great time.
Being that it's your first time drinking, and you didn't do some kind of sissy drinking, you went all out, serious drinking. How sick were you either that night or the next day, or for how long? I mean, you had to have been down for a couple of days.
You know what? I would have thought the same thing. I have no idea, but like for a while, like when I started drinking, I did not have hangovers. It was like probably like 4 or 5 times after I started drinking, I was like, I'm fine. This is great. And then eventually, and now it's not the same anymore. I don't know what's happened. Now I don't really drink that much anymore, like at all. So I have a glass of wine, and the next day I'm like, oh my God. Like it's I don't know what happened. I guess my tolerance went down, which is crazy. But yeah, it was surprisingly that next morning I got up, and my mom and grandma, we went and got breakfast, and they were surprised that I was standing. So
wow.
It was cool.
I would be surprised you'd be standing too. I just think a double Jaeger today, I'd be wiped out.
Oh, you and me both. I mean, that's
you did.
Thick liquor. Oh, and it's
it's so
happy licorice. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So if somebody wants to find out more about you,
yeah, I mean, there's you can go to youthpastorryan.com. No, I'm not a real youth pastor. Yes, I do look like it. And And if you want to go there, it's got a link to all my stuff. That's probably the easiest way. Or you can find me on TikTok and YouTube at Youth Pastor Ryan, as well as Twitch. I'll occasionally stream stuff, but then Ryan Kelly Comedy on Instagram. Because I couldn't get Youth Pastor Ryan, I did talk to that guy about it, and funny enough, he forgot his password, and he actually follows me now, so he's a very nice guy. So yeah, the last time that account posted was like 2013, and I was like, you know what though, it's nice to have the comedy one, because that's what I do. Also, if you want to, you can watch where that video comes from. Is my first comedy special, Girlfriends and Girlfriends, kind of about a series of dating mistakes and figuring out life, and figuring out that the girlfriends that were there were much better than the girlfriends that I dated. And so it was really nice. So that's available on Amazon, or you can listen to it for free on Spotify. Other than that, that's pretty much me. And if you
Great.
have a scam and you want me to take a crack at it, youthpastorryan.com, there's a scams and spam submission form. I've gotten over 4,000 submissions already. I try to take down as many as I can, or I always point the people in the right direction so that we can get that taken care of. So if you don't hear from me, it's not because I'm not looking for it. It's just because I am only one man and certainly trying my best. So yeah.
Ryan, man, it's been a blast having you on. I would love to bring you back. And now, as far as your next comedy event and anything planned for any time soon?
Yeah, I believe I've got some stuff on my website that says March is coming up. I think I'm doing the end of March. Let me actually pull that up real quick. Yeah, let me. I know I've got Austin, Texas,
Nice.
March 24th, then Buffalo, New York, March 28th, and then Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, March 30th, and that's going to be Cap City Comedy. Then the other two are Heliums, and I like the Helium chain; they're fun. And then after that, I do have some other ones coming in April, which I'm very excited about.
But it's all at Youth Pastor Ryan.
Yes. Oh, and you know what? Actually, hold on. You know what? I actually need to edit some stuff, because I realized that that Buffalo show is actually being flipped for a show in Springfield, Missouri, which is great because that's close to where I am. And then I'm doing a show on the 27th at what's it called? Oklahoma City, which I'm excited. I've never been to Oklahoma. I've got 4 states left, and then I'll tick them all off. So Oklahoma's one of them.
Nice. All right, Ryan, thank you so much for stopping by. Looking forward to catching up with you later.
I appreciate it, Bert. Thanks so much for having me, and I hope you have a great day.